Is there room in the fridge?
Well, good evening, members. We're slightly early tonight, but we are on record now, so it's 17:30 exactly. So let's draw this meeting to order. Can I welcome everybody to this virtual meeting of the Housing and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee being held on the 20th of July 2021. I'm Councillor John Ridgewell, Chair of this committee, and more than ably supported by my Vice Chair, Councillor Mike Adams. And can I say how very nice it is to be back sitting in this position? Can I just remind everybody that can you please keep your microphones on mute and your cameras off, unless you're making a contribution to the meeting. A Chair and Vice Chair, myself and Mike will be keeping our cameras on and our microphones on throughout the meeting. As always, anyone wishing to contribute to the meeting should use the hands up button on their control bar and then wait to be called. Thank you. Tonight, we shall be using Microsoft Forms for voting on agenda items 3 and 5, and a poll will pop up on the members screen when that happens. Members will be asked to click on either the for, against or abstain, and then finally click on the submit vote. The vote will stay open for about 30 seconds or so. Any members joining us by telephone will be asked to state their vote, and I think we've got somebody with a bit of a technical problem tonight. And just to remind everybody, in the event that you can't access the voting poll, please indicate it and your vote can then be taken verbally. And finally, if members lose connection during the meeting, please make every effort to reconnect. Mark Harris is on hand here to help you. However, the meeting will continue as long as it remains quorate. So if I can move on to reading the Council's privacy statement. This meeting will be recorded and made available to view via the Council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images and audio of those individuals speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. And just before we move on to the agenda proper, for anyone who will be viewing this meeting and who may be unfamiliar with the process, a formal vote will only be required for agenda items 2 and 5 tonight this evening, and the reason for this will become clear as the meeting progresses. So if I can move on to agenda item 1, and that is to receive apologies for absence. Mark, I think there are some apologies already. Could you let us know who those are, please?
Yes, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Hardin, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Sargent. Thanks very much indeed. Is there anybody else who has apologies they can offer on behalf of somebody? I take that as a no. It just occurs to me, although we didn't actually arrange this beforehand, it might be useful to have a roll call so that everybody watching this will know who's on. So, Mark, can I ask you to take us through all the members, please, and they can say yay or nay as to attendance? Thank you. Certainly, Chair. Councillor Adams.
Yay.
Councillor Bevan. Councillor Cushing.
Nay, but yay.
Councillor Ellsbury.
I'm here.
Councillor Goff.
Present.
Councillor Higgs. Councillor Kirby.
Present.
Councillor Philippa Leonard. Councillor Owen.
Present.
Councillor Price.
Present and correct, and sorry for the delay. Couldn't find my button.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Ridgewell.
Yeah, present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
And Councillor Zaplatinsky.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Those numbers make us quorate. Can you confirm?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. So moving on to agenda item 2, which is the declarations of interest. And I need to read this to you all. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and or prejudicial interests in respect of any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Can I ask if there are any declarations of interest? I take silence as a no, so thank you all very much. And we can now move on to agenda item 3, which is to approve and sign the following minutes, which is the Housing and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee held on the 20th of April 2021. So we are just checking these for accuracy. Page 1, page 2, page 3, and Mark, my screen's gone blank here. I think there's a page 4. Am I right?
That's a blank screen, Chair.
Yes, Chair. There's a blank screen, so just 3 pages of minutes.
3 pages. Thank you. Okay, I just lost that bit there. Okay, then. Thanks very much indeed. Are there any points that anyone raised in terms of accuracy that we need to note? Okay, thank you, everybody. Can I have somebody to move a recommendation?
I move
the recommendation, the
Yes,
Chair,
Kevin.
Councillor Williams.
I think that was Jez's voice I heard there. Thank you very much. And do we have a seconder?
Yes. I'll second.
Thanks very much indeed. Okay. Okay, so as I've said before, we shall be moving on to the vote using the Teams forms ballot. Okay, and I've already gone through this, but just to remind everybody, when it comes up, you will either vote against, abstain, or for. And clearly, if you weren't there, as I wasn't, then it will be necessary for you to abstain at this juncture. So I think the forms team will be appearing on our screen shortly.
Yeah, it's there now, Chair.
Thanks very much indeed, Mark. Okay.
I'm the same as you, Chair. I'm abstaining from voting as I wasn't present at the meeting.
Fine. I think that's everybody, Mark. Can you confirm, please? Did you hear that, Mark? Can you confirm everybody voted?
Sorry, Chair. Yes, that's gone through. 5 for and 5 abstentions.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed. Okay, fine.
And no against.
Which takes us on to agenda item 4, which is consideration of any matters referred to in this committee in accordance with the call-in procedure. Mark, do we have any call-ins on this?
No call-ins today, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. So moving on to agenda item 5. This is the Housing and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee, and it's our forward work programme. So I'm going to hand over to Mark now to take us through that. So over to you, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So members are asked to consider the forward work programme alongside the Cabinet work programme as appended to the report and to suggest any changes. I can just give you a quick recap in terms of the next meeting. As you can see, the next meeting is after recess for your committee on the 7th of September. At that meeting, there will be a delivery plan for the Welsh Government Prospectus and Social Housing Grant Programme. And also we'll have 2 year-end performance reports at that meeting in September, one for Caerphilly Homes and one for Communities Directorate. So that's at the next meeting of your committee after the recess. So if members are happy, I would like to seek approval to publish the Housing and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee forward work programme onto the Council's website. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mark. Do we have any comments from members on this?
Yes, please, Chair. Councillor Walter Williams.
Yeah, fine. Fire away, Walter.
Appendix 2, the 29th of the 9th, 21, dog control, public space, protection order. It says to update Cabinet on the result of a public consultation exercise with respect to the exclusion of dogs from marked sports pitches on a seasonal basis. Now, I thought this was a permanent proposal, not just when, is it the dog in season or is it actual the sport in season? I mean, we have now outside on the field opposite my house, young people playing football or just running about. But normally football or rugby would be off now, is pre-season. So I think we should look at this and get it on a permanent basis.
Okay, thanks, Walter. I need to take advice, Mark, on this now. I mean, under normal circumstances, this would not be an issue for debate, I think. Can you advise on the best way of progressing this particular issue that's been raised by Councillor Williams?
Yes, certainly, Chair. I can certainly get clarification on this point and circulate it to members outside the meeting. The actual author of this report, I don't think, is present at this meeting, so cannot provide clarification at this stage. But I can certainly speak to the author and provide clarification, which I will circulate to all members, Chair, if that's agreeable.
Yeah, well, I think that would be very useful. Thank you very much. I know there is some strong feeling on this because we've had some pre-meeting discussions on it on this particular point. So it is fairly critical, and I think we would appreciate that very much indeed. Thank you for that. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Walter. Yes. Okay.
A couple of other hands up, Chair.
Okay.
Donna Cushing, Councillor Cushing.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I totally agree with Walter on this issue. I think the wider consensus of opinions is that this is going to be a permanent thing rather than a seasonal thing. And, you know, it's unfortunate that the many have to pay for the foo on this issue. But I feel that if we do it as a seasonal thing, there children and other people that use these facilities outside the season, and I feel maybe that we should look at it being considered as a permanent issue, and I totally agree with Walter on this matter.
Okay, if I can add into that as well, Chair, Councillor Adams. We've had this discussion and presentations to a number of committees over the last year, probably, and I can't ever remember it being reduced down to just affecting seasonal use, because we know that the problem is 12 months, every 24/7. Anytime you go to any of the pitches, you can see the evidence that day. So, but I can't recall exactly the wording in the presentations that we've seen. So, wait for Mark to come back.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Goff, Rob.
Yeah, if I can, Chair, I think it's important because when you say seasonal for the season, it's a bit ambiguous because you've got cup competitions because some of our football teams are in Welsh League, so that would overrun the end of season. You then see quite often end of July or mid-July through to early August teams pre-season training on those pitches. And then you have friendlies before the season starts. And I think it gives the opportunity for people to abuse what we're trying to do. And it's not just us, because you can see from what's being said here that we're having trouble understanding this. But I was in a community council meeting last week and they were under the same impression. There was a blanket decision to prohibit the walking of dogs on pitches, lined pitches, completely. So I think it needs clarity, and it needs clarity other than councillors, those other people who are being consulted.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. I think Mark's obviously got the strength of feeling here, which is critical, and as he said, we will have a response to this via him, and I'm sure we'll be very interested to hear what the outcome is from that. So thank you, Mark.
That's okay, Chair. And as I said, I'll circulate to all members, and obviously there will be the opportunity when the report comes to committee in September to debate these issues as well at that time. But I will certainly seek clarification before that event.
Fine, that's okay. So if there are any other points to be made, can I have somebody to recommend the minutes?
Happy to move, Chair. Rob Goff.
Thanks, Rob. And a seconder?
Jez Kirby.
Thanks, Jez. Okay. So once again, we'll be using the forms, the Teams form on the screen, and it should be present in a moment or two.
It's in front of you now, Chair.
There we go.
Thanks, Mark. So, Mark, it looks unanimous. Can you confirm that was the case?
Yes, that's correct, Chair. That's been carried unanimously.
Thanks very much indeed. That's great. So we're now moving on to agenda item 5. I think I'm right in saying I'm a bit up and down on my screen at the moment, so apologies if I'm a bit clumsy on this, which is the Housing Regeneration Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme. Am I okay with that?
That's what we just done, Chair.
Sorry.
That's the one we just done.
As I was saying it, I thought to myself, I seem to be having a deja vu moment. Put it down to the heat, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So moving on to agenda item 6. Okay. Which is to receive and consider the following cabinet reports. I'll read them out because I think it's useful to do, but there's something I've got to say afterwards. Okay, so there's the Regeneration Board project proposals, which was the 21st of April 2021. There's the UK government funding for local and regional economies, the Levelling Up Fund, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and the UK Community Renewal Fund, and that was the 19th of May 2021. And finally, there was the street naming and numbering proposed charges to add and rename, remove a residential property, and that was the 7th of July 2021. If you could just confirm, Mark, have any of these cabinets been brought for, have any of these cabinet reports been brought forward for review?
No, none of the reports have been brought forward, Chair.
Okay, fine. Thanks very much. So we will move on to agenda item 7. Okay. Which is
John, before
Hello.
you do, can I just make a comment?
By all means,
I'm on the Regeneration Board, and Christina was due to come to speak to the board around about that April time, but unfortunately things have changed and circumstances have dictated it haven't happened. But I raise concern that backbenchers and other members of the council are not fully au fait with some of the projects that are being put forward by the Regeneration Board that affect their wards. And I think it's important that we have a clear way of disseminating that information to those councillors. Just to give you an idea, in my own political group, I'm being asked questions on things that are being discussed there, and I'm in a decision of, can I discuss it or not, because of financial implications and partnerships with the private sector. So the idea was that Christina and Mark we're going to come up with a way of disseminating that information to the other councillors to give them an idea of the good work that's going on, really. So I'm hoping that's going to happen in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Because of the way where this meeting is running, I think we'll have to ask Mark to take that as an information item back to be taken up through the system. Is that okay, Mark?
Yes, Chair. I'll make sure I do that.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Okay.
Chair, can I just step in as well? Can I just only quickly,
By all means, Donna, yes.
I've emailed Mark my queries on the cabinet information. My apologies, I didn't get them in time before the 10 a.m. Deadline yesterday morning, but I have sent my queries through to Mark on these issues.
Yes, I've received those, Councillor Cushion, and I will get back to you on that outside of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And just for clarity, Mark, those questions that Councillor Cushing's raised will be circulated to all members, will they not?
Yes, correct, Chair. I'll circulate the responses to all members.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thank you, Donna. Thanks, Mark. So we're now moving on to agenda item 7, which is the housing revenue account budget monitoring outturn for 2020-2021. And if I can ask our cabinet member Lisa Phipps to introduce the report. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, members. The purpose of the report in front of you this evening is to inform you of the outturn position for the housing revenue accounts for the 2020-2021 financial year. The HRA capital programme, which is predominantly funded by the HRA, is also included within the report. In summary, the HRA budget for 2020-2021 is £51.7 million, with its main components consisting of £11.7 million of salaries, net of WHQS funding, £8.3 million of capital financing charges, £8.8 million of building maintenance and response repairs, £2.8 million of internal service recharges, and £17.8 million of revenue contributions to fund the WHQS programme. The spend on the HRA is self-financed mainly by the rental income we collect from our council tenants, of which about 72% is funded by housing benefits. At the end of this financial year, the HRA has an underspend of £10 million, which represents about 19% of the total HRA budget. Members will note that this is a significant increase on previous projections as a consequence of repeated lockdown restrictions that have impacted on the ability to progress the WHQS programme in our tenants' homes. The main variances on the HRA are explained in the report, and full financial details are provided at Appendix 1. Members are requested to note the contents of this report this evening. And I can confirm that officers from housing are in attendance this evening should members have any queries on the content of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Lisa. So debate is open. Do we have any questions? Can you see hands up, Mike, at the moment?
Councillor Bob Owen is the first hand that's gone up, Chair.
Thanks. Okay. Bob, would you like to ask a question?
Good evening, all. Yeah, it's obviously I can see all the reasoning and the various breakdowns as why we've underspent. I've just got a query, excuse me, but it's sort of like a ward query as such, but it is to do with WHQS. We've got a complex then within Risca West, and there's others as well, I believe, that WHQS wasn't thought economical, you know, like an old site then that they you know, they weren't gonna, it was cost too much to put it right then. So as I believe it, these places, a couple of sheltered accommodation places, were basically said, well, look, you know, they're livable, but we can't upgrade to WHQS. So they were told, as far as I believe, in these complexes, that they would be moved out into new accommodation by 2022. So we're 6 months away from that. Sorry, my phone just went off. So we're 6 months away from that now, and there's lots of talk that there may be sheltered accommodation at Darren in Risca, but we're clearly not going to meet the 2022 deadline that we've actually that we've told people that we're going to get them into new accommodation. So the question is, with all of COVID, and I realise that that's impacted on this, where I can go in terms of WHQS, who to speak to as to how we're going to try and pick this up. So I suppose it's part to do with this and part not to do, perhaps. But I'm looking a bit more for guidance, and I thought perhaps Lisa as housing may be able to help on that.
Thanks, Bob. Do you want to respond to that, Lisa?
Yeah, Bob, thanks for your query. Perhaps you'd like to email me, and perhaps we could organise a team meeting with the officers, yeah?
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
I can set that up for you. It's no problem.
Yeah, I'll send you a quick email later or in the morning.
Yeah.
Just so I can give you a little bit of info, and you can take that forward. That'd be brilliant. Thank you,
Yep.
Lisa.
Of course I will, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So sorry if it was a bit off kilter, that question, but
No, that's okay. That's no problem.
None
Thank
at
you.
all. Opportune to ask, isn't it? Yeah. Do we have any other questions at present? Okay. I've got a couple of points I'd like to raise actually, and I think it's 532 in the report, and it's in connection with the COVID response funding, Welsh Government COVID response funding. I noticed that there are a couple of quite big figures in there that we've had to pay out for security on void properties, and I think additional work on them, some 57k and 87k, and I think these have been excluded from the COVID response funding by Welsh Government on the basis that RSLs don't get the same funding either. And I just wonder if anyone could advise on whether RSLs have the same sort of proportion of void properties that local authorities do, and this local authority specifically has. Is it possible to get an answer on that at all?
Leslie, are you able to come in on that? Oh, there we are. Yeah, thank you.
I was trying to raise my hand then, it wasn't working on it. It's a bit delayed. We haven't got any information on the RSLs. Sorry, Councillor Ridgewell. We are liaising with Welsh Government to try and pool information together. It's very difficult to get it from housing associations because we are treated slightly differently. So we are trying to pool information. It is difficult to gain the information from them, but we are working with Welsh Government to pool information, not just for this, but for arrears and things like that we've encountered throughout the pandemic as well. And we are working closely with Welsh Government. So we are hoping to get some comparisons that we can work with. Unfortunately, as you've said, with the financial hardship fund, it was not allowed for anything from the HRA at all, which is quite disappointing when you see the level of costs that we had to bear throughout the year, and all the other services in the authority managed to claim the majority of the costs. So that was very, very disappointing. So unfortunately, we probably would have carried more underspend over into next year had we not have to fund the COVID, unfortunately. But you know, we still have to carry it over. We've got to complete WHQS by December 2021. We're in a fortunate position with the 10 million, and that will carry us through for next year.
Yeah, thanks. It did seem a little bit unfair. My understanding is that most RSLs, I mean, quite frankly, there's a queue to get into the property. And as a local authority, clearly, you know, we do know we have a number of void properties for lots of good reasons, you know. And I just felt that kind of rung a bit unfair towards us. But thanks for the response very much indeed. I'm happy to take any other questions, but I have a couple more if you'll bear with me, people. The other one was about the carryover, and I think you mentioned about 10 million, but I think I had a sort of figure of 7.1 in that. Now, presumably, there's a great deal of a backlog of work that we couldn't undertake, you know, because of the COVID restrictions. So am I right in assuming that this rollover will be spent during the next financial year? Is that the intention?
Yeah, to estimate the final part of WHQS, we're looking around about £8 million just to complete WHQS now in this financial year. So the majority of the 10 million will be gone on completing the WHQS programme. As soon as that is finished, obviously we then progress on to WHQS2, if you like, for want of a better word, which is our post-asset management strategy programme. And obviously any money then that we have will go towards the contribution of that. If we can limit our borrowing in any shape or form, obviously we will use our own reserves beforehand before we start getting into the borrowing regime. We've borrowed 40.9 million for WHQS. I think we were supposed to be borrowing around about 45, 46 million. It's unlikely that we will need to borrow any more for WHQS. Because of COVID, it's probably the only positive we've got is that we couldn't spend it this year and we managed to be able to carry it over next year. Therefore, we won't need the borrowing requirement for next year. So yes, predominantly, Councillor Ridgewell, it will be going on completing the WHQS programme next year, well, this financial year. Yeah,
okay. And do we actually have a fixed timescale now for completion of that phase one of that?
Yeah, December 2021 is our absolute deadline for completing the programme. You're probably all aware we were due to complete it in June 2020, and we would have been on target, unfortunately, to do that had COVID not happened. We are currently anticipating August, September time for our internals. And around about now, we would have been completing our externals, but you might have noticed in the report that there was one contractor who's gone into liquidation. So unfortunately, they've put us on a bit of an extension, but we are confident that we will hit it by December 2021.
Thanks very much. I'm wrestling with my dog still, so I apologise for that. So thanks very much indeed. And just one final question, and it's concerning the arrears. I don't know if anybody can answer that, but I mean, clearly we were aware there's been a great deal of hardship in the community as a consequence of COVID, and we are facing a rent arrears situation. I just wonder whether somebody could expand a bit on that. I read extensively in the report, but a summary of statement would be very useful for me, I think, if that could be provided.
Good evening, Councillor Ridgewell. Sandra Isaacs, the rents manager.
Hi,
Hello
Sandra.
there. You know, I would say we've had a very difficult year. Rent arrears have increased. If I can just summarise our past 12, 13 months. In the beginning of COVID in April 2020, all our cash facilities were closed overnight virtually. Yeah. We had to work closely with our tenants to try to move to a different channel shift to make payments. We were really successful, and now we've moved from 10% of our tenants paying on the internet to 25%. Post office payments, there's been a huge increase in post office payments, telephone payments. So we had to work with our customers to try to move them to a different method of payment. So initially, our rent arrears did increase quite a lot. They levelled out then during the summer, and we have seen a decrease now, very slightly. Where we are in Caerphilly is we want to sustain tenancies. I'm proud to work and manage a team who offer as much support as we can for our tenants. £2.4 million additional income was generated for our residents last financial year. Caerphilly has invested in additional staff to further support that through COVID now and post-COVID. We are in a good position to provide that support going forward, I believe. We've got a trained cohort of staff. And, you know, we work quite closely with Welsh Government. As Leslie mentioned earlier on, we meet now with Welsh Government every 2 months with every local authority with housing stock in Wales. We look to look at best practice, comparing performance, the number of court actions. So, you know, we are really eager to learn from others, and others learn from us as well. And, you know, I do feel we are honestly in as good a position as we can be to support our residents at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sandra. I mean, that I think was the thrust of my question, really. I mean, clearly we have to manage the financial issues, but I'm sure everybody on the committee here shares the concern that there would be residents out there who are in difficult financial situations, and it's really reassuring to hear you make those statements. So thanks ever so much with that.
Thank
okay.
You. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions at all? I see. Donna,
yes,
have you got a hand up?
Councillor Cushing, I would like to come in after and follow what Sandra has just been telling us.
And I would as well, please, Chair.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, then.
Yeah,
Donna, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I wonder if somebody could give me some information regarding the void properties. Basically, is it similar in other counties, or you know, is it worse in Caerphilly? Or wouldn't you have that information? It would just be interesting to know if, you know, what's the situation in other counties regarding void properties.
Chair, it's Lisa Phipps. I can try and obtain that information.
Could you, Lisa? Yeah, please. Thank you.
But I can try and obtain that information from Donna, sort of a comparison with neighbouring authorities.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Donny, are you happy with a response from the cabinet member after the meeting?
Yeah, that's
outside the
lovely.
meeting?
Thanks, Lisa. If you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay,
Can I come in now then, Chair?
yeah, please, Mike. Yeah,
It's just following up on Sandra Isaac's comments about all that we had to change and all that we're learning and all that we're helping other councils to offset some of what we've learned. Please try this on your own base, etc. And yes, she's absolutely right that I've spoken to a number of housing advice officers regarding people faced with homelessness from private accommodation, and there's an enthusiasm from those officers to do the best they can for any of the clients that get in touch with them. I'm involved in one in particular at the moment, and yes, that hope to help positively is very much coming through from every officer I've spoken to. Thanks, Chair.
thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike. I would reiterate your points. I've had a similar experience myself, and quite frankly, I am hugely impressed with the way our homelessness teams have dealt with these projects. I mean, it's been an exemplar of good practice, quite frankly, which is excellent. Are there any other more hands up? I'm not very good on my screen at the moment.
Please. I'd
Yeah,
like to come
Councillor
in.
Price.
Oh, yes, mine doesn't show your hand. Yeah, far away.
How dare you forget about me, John? How
I couldn't
dare
forget
you?
about you, Di. Nobody could.
I just want to thank Sandra Isaacs because she is very, very passionate about her job. And for as long as I've known her, she always has been. You either like your job or you don't. She does, and she does us a lot of good. So thank you very much, Sandra.
Thank you very much for your nice words, Councillor Price. I do love my job, and I am proud to manage such a supportive, innovative, and a team who's passionate to help our residents.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, fine. Do we have any other questions at the moment? Can you see anybody, Mike, up there with a hand up?
I can't see any more hands up at the moment. Don't know whether any officers want to come in and expand on some of the answers we may have had.
Good point. Are there any officers who want to add anything more to what's been said so far?
I know the sun is still shining out there, and we all want to get under a bit of shade, but
Well,
there we go.
Perhaps so. Yeah. Okay. Well, perhaps on a final note, I can just make a point, because as this meeting draws to a close, I think it'd be wholly appropriate to place on record this committee's appreciation of the entire housing team.
Yes,
They've worked
indeed.
tirelessly during this unprecedented crisis and continue to do so. It has been hugely impressive. And if I may just single out the senior managers, who've all stepped up to the mark since the retirement of the former chief housing officer and continue to steer this ship so effectively as we go through the process of appointing a new head of service. So I'd like that very much to go on record. Thank you all very much indeed. On that note, if there's nobody else that wants to raise any points, then I think I can safely say that we have concluded the agenda, and we can draw the meeting to a conclusion. So thank you all very much indeed, and apologies for